Thank you for joining Jackson Lewis as we take a closer look at the employment law trends and tactics sure to shape 2023. This installment is one of 12 concise, field-specific podcast episodes that are part of our annual forecasting favorite, The Year Ahead. We invite you and others at your organization to experience the report's legislative, regulatory, and litigation insights in full at our website, jacksonlewis.com, or listen to the podcast series at whichever platform you turn to for compelling content.
Hi, I'm Laura Pierson-Scheinberg, and in the Baltimore and San Francisco offices, I primarily do union and labor side work, and I'm here with my partner, Felice Ekelman. Felice, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Laura. I'm Felice Ekelman, and I'm based in Jackson Lewis's New York City office. And 2022 will go down in history as the year that Laura and I spoke endlessly about union organizing trends to industry groups. We were invited by industry groups mostly focused in the retail and hospitality industry to talk about developments in union organizing activity, and we want to give you our predictions for next year, this year actually, 2023, and we are sure that we are going to continue to speak to industry groups and to clients about this issue because it is still a very important issue that workplace leaders need to think about and be aware of.
So let's do a little bit of backdrop and talk about just the statistics because they are really, really overwhelming. So with President Biden in the White House and a very pro-labor National Labor Relations Board, we saw some really record-paced decisions, particularly in the last quarter of last year, that really address the employer communication elements and really to help facilitate the unionization process. And so we see that with one backdrop. And then we see petitions being filed. And petitions were being filed at a rate. At the first half of the year, it was up 72%. I guess the unions filed at a little bit of a lesser rate. I haven't seen the end of the year statistics over the year over year. But really, you're talking about an increase of over 65% of petitions filed over the year, meaning that unions are filing petitions at a much, much faster rate. Additionally, you're seeing them across industries. Yes, there was a spike, particularly in the retail and restaurant industries, but you are seeing a spike across the board of just really what I'm calling the labor renaissance. Felice, do you want to talk about some of the things that we're seeing in this renaissance?
Yes. So what is driving this is that most of the employees who are interested in unions and interested in belonging to a union and curious about what union organizing and what having a union means are younger. And we're seeing a whole host of issues emerge as the impetus for this interest in organizing. And that combined with a sentiment that is widespread throughout the country, where younger folks who are now in the workplace are reacting very negatively to employer efforts to argue that union organizing is a bad idea and that unions are a bad idea. And Laura and I have seen lots of evidence that union busting is disgusting is a viewpoint that is being held and articulated by many employees who are intrigued by and interested in unions. And these folks who are driving the increase in union organizing throughout the country don't like it when their employers take a stance where they talk about unions in a negative way. And this presents a challenge to employers in terms of composing a message to employees about why being union-free or not having a union in the workplace is better than having a union in the workplace.
So I think a lot of it is about thinking about this as a social movement. It really is employee-led. It is led by the Gen Z is really what's really driving this, so the 18 to 29-year-olds. And it has themes. So DEI, voice at the table, wanting to make a difference. They're looking at what are you doing in the community. It's not good enough anymore to not be doing harm as an employer. They're really expecting, they're really looking to work for things different than what we have looked at historically in other generations as to what work means. They want to find meaning, they want to find purpose, and their definition of that is being a part of and changing the companies. And a lot of times, we used to say, I've been doing this work for almost 25 years. And I used to start this training even 5 years ago. Hey, it's not hard to just don't be a jerk, right? This isn't hard. But really, when the employees are interested in the concepts that really unions have been excellent at, starting during COVID and really the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and those issues, they really converged and really identified on the scene as a change maker through various issues, and they have been very good at facilitating. Additionally, safety issues, right? They've been organizing around safety issues, and COVID started that, but it continues. And so what you're seeing it organized through social media, but it's the employees who then teach the next group of employees, who teach the next group of employees, only being facilitated behind the scenes by the unions, giving them the resources to do it, but the employees are doing the work. So where you're seeing industries that have traditionally not had it because it wasn't good bang for the buck or enough for a union to be interested in organizing it for members because it was either too small or too remote or in a region where you wouldn't normally have that activity, you're seeing it more because it was facilitated by the employee interest through those social media channels. Felice, a couple of examples of that?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is the union organizing activity is viewed, as Laura, you just said, as a social movement. It's a way for employees to feel like they are engaged and doing more than just the task at hand in the workplace. And, this change in viewpoints as to what the purpose of a union is really new and different and was not embraced by baby boomers and was not in existence for the last few decades, which is really what is making the employer challenge to responding to this much different from what it was 10 or 20 years ago. And so when we talk to clients as they are targeted or facing union organizing, or as we talk to clients and industry groups about what should they be doing now before there is organizing activity, we have emphasized the importance of leaders stepping back and coming up with a plan, a communications plan, and a point of view that would resonate with employees as a positive communication about why their workplace and the things that the employer does is enough to meet the need to be part of a social movement so that employees don't look for a union to provide that outlet. And that's a challenge for employers. And we have been working with, as I said, our clients, not only in the hospitality and retail industries, but in industries throughout the country in all ranges of compensation levels. I've been telling Laura that here in New York, we are seeing a lot of organizing activity in the not-for-profit arena, which also emanates from the same source. And so this change in attitude combined with a change at the labor board is creating a moment where employers really need to be proactive and think about things they can do now before there's organizing so that if it does happen, they have a response that's credible and meaningful.
And so when you're thinking we're doing this as like, what are we looking at this year? New year, new budget, like what you're thinking about, as you think about where do I start? And really it's a vulnerability assessment, right? It's how am I doing? But at a very different level. It's not just in this like very narrow column. It's looking at the organizational wellness on a wider stance. And when I talk to clients, I was like, look, the good part about this work as we look at what we're doing and how we're measuring up and where we can tweak things. It also has the being ready for the union issue is a small sliver of what it can actually do for your organization. You're really looking at organizational driving factors, turnover. I mean, everybody's fighting for talent. Turnover is high, and the fight for talent and the expectations of what what employees expect out of work, as we just spoke about, is a big thing. So how do we keep and drive the employee engagement? How do we really communicate and find our voice within our own culture? And so the playbook, that we used to really default to was pretty standard, right? You would have a certain cadence that you would do when a union would come in. Really, that playbook has to get dusted off and kind of pushed to the side. And it's not that those issues still aren't there, because I see it as very much a generational issue. So there are generations within it. But when you're talking to the employees now, it needs to be an individualized communication. It can't be like overarching themes and campaigns where you're just talking at them. You have to reach them where they are and figure out what they want out of work and what makes them unhappy, and how you can give them that voice, how you can give them that connection to the work and to your organization.
Laura, one of the things I suggest to clients is that they make sure that employee engagement is part of the corporate mission, and community engagement, which is also a part of employee engagement. And when employee and community engagement is part of an organization's mission, then the way forward is a lot more convincing, and it comes naturally. So if making sure that the work environment is safe, that the product that is being created by the employees is safe, and it's a good product for the public, if it's a product that has some ESG positive attributes, that's also very helpful. All of these ideas, I think, can really work towards an organization's favor if this is thought of in a way in which employees recognize that efforts are being made on the part of the organization to engage employees and the community. And, an employer that's doing this but not telling people telling their employees that they're doing that, the organization's really losing out. So looking at employee engagement programs, looking at that mission statement, that's all very important. I think we need to spend a minute talking about what's happened at the Labor Board. And the Labor Board is a federal agency. Labor relations is governed by federal law. And while I don't think we anticipate, Laura, that we're going to see any congressional change in the law in the next 2 years, what we are going to continue to see is enforcement mechanisms changing by the Labor Board's general counsel and the board members that are essentially legislating new changes. So we know that the general counsel feels strongly that employer communications should be limited. We also know that the general counsel is very interested in more aggressive remedies for violations of the National Labor Relations Act, which are called unfair labor practices. Have you seen that, Laura, in your case handling?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing, and it's making it much, much more difficult to settle cases, because things that you could once settle cases for, like, for example, 80% of back pay, not reinstatement. They're asking for letters of apology from the CEO. I mean, things you've never seen before. There was actually a case that just affirmed recently as a part of their back pay and reinstatement remedy. The reinstatement and the consequential damages include crazy things that we've never thought about, such as rent, student loan payments, like things that aren't available in employment litigation, frankly. So it's a really heavy reach. And so, we were just trying to give you a little flavor of kind of what we're seeing. And if I always do my job on these, I say I make you a little bit paranoid after you hear us talk. But we want to talk about some takeaways. So I'm going to give a couple, and then I'll kick it to Felice. But from my perspective, you just want to make sure that you feel like you're listening. and you're listening to what's going on. And this issue is about organizational wellness. And so when we zoom out, are we ready? So the vulnerability assessment is really important. I also think that if you're in an industry that's particularly vulnerable right now, so retail, restaurant, hospitality, tech, where management corporate is different and not on the ground every day, that you have a good communications plan and how to bubble up issues, the complaint channels to know what's going on in the field, and to really be able to assess that first level management, because they're your eyes and ears. And if you don't know what's going on with them, then this can be going on at the ground level, and there just not be an awareness of it at sort of the heart of the organization. So vulnerability assessments and training would be my two takeaways as to where to put that budget this year. How about you, Felice?
I really think that training piece is critical, Laura. I cannot emphasize it enough, because the federal labor law, again, we're talking about the National Labor Relations Act, is complicated and really requires some explanation for C-suite folks to appreciate the implications of the law and how it can impact their business. And so I think the first step every organizational leader has to undertake is to communicate with their cohort around that boardroom and C-suite table and understand and appreciate what this law requires. And that's the first step for sure. After that, I think your vulnerability assessment is important, but I also think that this is an important opportunity for many members of the management team to put their heads together and come up with a plan of engagement, because in the end, improving employee engagement, as you just said, Laura, is going to have all kinds of positive effects. It'll improve retention. It'll improve public relations in the sense that the organization will have positive community feedback. And there are so many positives that can come from an enhanced employee engagement program. And so we hope that in 2023, all of you listeners will think about the importance of an engagement plan and make sure that they understand the implications of the National Labor Relations Act.
I think we're going to be busy again and probably spending some time together. And we look forward to hearing from all of you as to what you're seeing out there.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for the Year Ahead 2023 Special Edition podcast series. Please tune in to the next episode, where we will continue to tell you not only what's legal, but what is effective. All of our Jackson Lewis podcasts are available to stream and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Libsyn, Pandora, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube. For more information on today's topic, our presenters, and other Jackson Lewis resources, visit jacksonlewis.com. As a reminder, this material is provided for informational purposes only. It is not intended to constitute legal advice, nor does it create a client-lawyer relationship between Jackson Lewis and any recipient.